we set off to create a pedagogy of the self. In classrooms with mounting pressures and soaring expectations, the children had scarce space for self-discovery. There was an urgent need to provide this. Driven by this rationale, we began to design a curriculum, built upon the learnings of positive psychology, spirituality, and philosophy. We named our mission Little Light, the light that burns within each of us, bearing the promise to nurture each child's flame.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
When Rohina Thapar, our designer, began to create the logo and consequently the cover pages, she was inspired by sources of light such as the sun, the candle, and the light bulb that provide endless inspiration, joy, and life. They affect one's inner mind, encouraging self-reflection and self-awareness. The concept looks at Little Light as a source of light or enlightenment for children, nurturing them to become themselves sources of light. It's no surprise that our approach was a visual one, bolstered by the age-old, tried-and-tested tool for dissemination and reflection, storytelling. Imagine that you're in first grade, and amongst all those brown-cover textbooks, you find one that is bursting with beautiful illustrations that draw you in, questions that make you think, and projects that inspire you to explore. Just like each child that would read them, each story was created to be unique. We worked with about 10 illustrators on 30 stories over 3 grade books. As the chapters led the child through the various circles of the self, the illustrators were tasked with facilitating the journey. The body, corporeal, physical, the most obvious association with identity and possession. The characters were created to be similarly solid, easily identified by children. Always is a story about the uniqueness of each body and loving oneself despite the comments of others. Sumedha took on a simple but effective approach of illustration. While always did mention the age group of the character, it hinted towards it. This helped Sumedha contextualize the other people associated with the main character, the mother, the children, and how they affected the lead character's childhood with their behavior towards him, all the mocking and nasty things they said. Sumedha truly believes in magic, and it appears time and time again. We're constantly discovering new things about the everyday. Children see it more clearly than most. The sense of magic blooms in her drawings and settles upon the pages in the form of a bird. The mind. Subtler, but discernible. I think, therefore I am. The visuals drew out a storm of emotions, the confusion of thought and the will to overcome. Rohina's approach to creating emotions in a way that children would understand was colorful. Her understanding of the concept helped her empathize with the characters she was going to draw and paint. She saw them as complex creatures who were going through their lives as their best selves and yet somehow learned something new and meaningful along the way. She wanted to play with contrast and abstraction of form. The challenge was in creating abstracted anthropomorphic forms for all the emotions, which weren't too cartoonish and yet playful. She worked with Staedtler color pencils to create dense colored layers to depict these emotions that give a sense of motion without forming flat blocks. She felt that this would suit their flowy and airy characteristics. The soul, subtlest, the witness, the heart of who I am. A calm meditation required to know that I am more than my body, my mind, or intellect. The illustrations became abstract, but not to confound, rather to reveal. Sarasija illustrated a beautiful story about the soul called The Balloon That Flew. It wasn't about illustrating the text, but about doing something parallel to the text. It wasn't about illustrating the soul, but to allow the child to interpret it the way they wanted. She explained, when you're looking at an intangible as an artist in your practice, and you're looking at all of the subversive ways of handling it, there are many questions that come in on how to visually or textually represent an intangible. But when the same thing gets translated into something for children, the brain functions very differently. My relationships, expanding outwards to the connections with others. Once more, the depictions become corporeal, a reminder that we aren't alone. Trisha Salvi illustrated Puzzle Post, a story about how each person in a team has a unique role to play. To her, the most beautiful way to show diversity is through the collages and how different colors, textures, shapes, and sizes can create interesting and thought-compelling images. There was a possibility of weaving the text into visuals itself. Drawing from her childhood, She remembered the giddy excitement felt whilst discreetly passing chits in class. Growing up, she went to a school where differences were of no great consequence. They were like pieces of puzzles, but comfortable in their own individuality. Illustrating the story was special because it was about sharing empathy and safety in unity. The three mini stories also showed the beauty in communication rather than the harboring of uncomfortable feelings, something relevant not only to children but also adults. My community. Connecting with the larger network we belong to, with compassion and gratitude. This is an opportunity to create diverse and inclusive relationships as the stories would reach children across the country. In Can I Help You? Chetan illustrated a story with strong and relatable characters, drawing attention to the characters' actions and relationships. He identified with the stories, remembering what he did when he was young, a sense that no task is below you, a sense of respect for everybody in the community. The boy was based on a friend's son. It was easy to imagine him being helpful to all. This made it easy to picture the illustration. My universe, a reminder that our network isn't just human. The illustrations brought alive the wonder of nature. Kia worked on creating the visuals for The Quiet Place, a close connection to nature and the environment. It was interesting to explore illustrating without a strict storyline. There was no continuous or specific series of actions, while the character remained the same. Immediately, it was easier to conceptualize the physical elements, but the character was special. A child. Not really a character, but a creature. A spirit, a representation of the person, but also of the space. And a choice of colors inspired by the light pastels of a pearl inside an oyster. The vibrant illustrations hope to inspire children to play, to storytelling, to imagination and exploration. But play was important to the illustrators as well. For Samita Shah, a self-taught artist and former architect, every book requires exploration. She draws and redraws until the illustration is close to what she had in mind. Fundamental in both architecture and illustration is drawing. Looking at buildings, symmetry, asymmetry, color, and form overlaps with the exploration of drawing. Lavanya Karthik, writer and illustrator, shared some insights from her process of creation. You fool around with line and color until something strikes a balance. The story triggers in your head with the words on the page. You try and find a happy balance. You want to draw things that are familiar to the child. A child should be able to read the drawings and relate. For Sarasija Subramanian, artist and educator, when it came to the concept of play in the visual, the biggest influence was actually cinema and the moving image. Inspired by films and animation, certain gestures, perspectives, or actions became part of her process, inspiring movement. Chetan Sharma, being an animator and filmmaker, is used to the idea of becoming other people. This allows for one to become subtler in illustrating. As we took the programs out to schools, we realized that it wasn't just the children that the stories touched. The teachers were inspired to a journey of self discovery as well. Similarly, during the process of creation, the creators were confronted by questions and realizations about themselves. Rohina Thapar, designer, enjoyed the slow, simple, and almost meditative aspects of creating these illustrations. She was mindful of each stroke, scratch, and smudge, each interaction of paint and pencil with paper. Given the spiritual nature of the story, she felt a sense of self awareness wash over her as she stepped into the characters' shoes and experienced their spiritual evolution through the stories. Tulika Suresh, artist and illustrator, prefers to understand these concepts through awareness and ethics rather than a spiritual route. The experience of working on children's books was a chance to rethink language, both visual and textual, to communicate ideas about subjectivity and the ethics that entail the notion of the other. Ankit Ravani, artist and teacher, confronted subconscious stereotypes during this project, an example being of that annoying plump child trope. He started connecting with the thoughts of a child. His stories showed the characters engaging with people in ways that adults often feel a social barrier. For example, seeing someone struggling with luggage at a train station inspires the desire to help, but the action doesn't necessarily follow. His illustrated children easily break these age barriers. We invite you to join in a few moments of quiet contemplation of your own, for no words of ours could express better than your own journey of self reflection. Take a moment in your own quiet place. Close your eyes and allow your face to melt into a gentle smile. Listen to the sounds of the world around you. Let these fade into the background. Listen to the sound of your heartbeat. Feel how it fills up your chest and echoes in your neck and on your wrists. Listen to the sound of your breath and the insides of your body. Feel how your whole body reacts to it. Allow yourself to exist within your own skin, within your own thoughts, within your own emotions. Let yourself simply be. When you're ready to reconnect with the world, feel the floor beneath you. Open your eyes slowly. Thank you, and may your little light shine bright.